Daf Kuf Lamed Zayin Amud Beis. We'll start Kuf Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph, the Mishnah at the bottom. Zok the Mishnah, Elohein sits in a makim, it's a milah. It's a milah if the foreskin is cut, but there are still some shreds of skin still left. That's ma'akev the milah. It's considered like the milah has not been complete, has not been performed. So what's the definition of tzitz and makim as a milah? Basar achayfes reivatar. It's any of the basar that covers the roiv of the ridge, of the high part of the ridge. If it covers the roiv, or the majority of that ridge, then it's considered to be that it's not gemalt. Ve'eno chabat truma, and therefore a kohen can't eat truma unless he's gemalt. So it's considered like it's not a milah, and he cannot eat truma. Now, if the milah was done properly, but the child was a bal basar, and therefore it appeared, since there was a thick skin that was hanging down, it appeared that the milah was not done. He cuts away some of it, the moil cuts away some of it because marasayin, so it should not appear like there was not a milah. So for marasayin, he cuts more of it. Mal v'loy paras a milah, kilo loy mal. If the milah was performed, but there was no priya, the membrane that's underneath the foreskin was not removed, and the Torah was not revealed, it's ki'ilu loy mal. It's like he did not perform the milah, like he was not makayim the mitzvah of milah. For says, why does the Tana have to tell us this? He already said in the Mishnah that basar achayfes reivat Torah, it's mark of the milah. So therefore, certainly the mal and v'loy para is kilo loy mal. So what is it? Why is this necessary? If you didn't do the priya, then roiv of the Torah is mechusa. Then why is this necessary to say this? The Mitzvah Zayson wants to answer that mal v'loy para is kilo loy mal, and therefore, if there was no priya, there's a chiyuv chorus on. If there's a basar roiva chayva Torah is ma'akev, it's considered like it's not a complete meal. But there would be, it's not like there's nothing has done. And therefore there would be no chiyuv chorus if it would remained like that. But mal v'loy para is kilo mal. It's like nothing at all was done. So if he remains that that way for the rest of his life, there would be a chiyuv chorus. Amar Yomi Masechet Basar achayfes red goyva shalatorah. When it says basar achayfes hatorah, it means that also if it's basar that's chayva the roiv goyva shalatorah, even if it doesn't cover the roiv of the circumference of the Torah, but it covers the roiv goyva, even if it's not a roiv of the circumference, it's still ma'akev. V'imoya bal balsa, it says if the child was a bal balsa, then it's masak mishum marzayin. Amr Shmuel katan masur balsa, a very heavy child. Roy Naisa calls manchim miskasha near mol if you had kishui. So then the aver is extended, and if that under those circumstances he would be near a mol, it would look like he was mol and sorach lomo. Then you don't have to cut more. But in lav sorach lomo. But otherwise you do have to. Masnisa Tana Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Omer called Tana Masur Basa. He says if he's very heavy, he says Ryan Oisa calls man shemiskasha when he's miskasha ve'ena near a mall. So he says it in that manner, not that calls man shemiskasha near a mall. He says if he's miskasha and he's not near a mall, then sorach lamol. Ve'im la ve'in sorach lamol. My beinayu ika beinayu near ve'ena near. The difference is in that he doesn't look, but there's a kishoy, then he does not appear to be not gemalt. It's near veina near. In some ways it looks gemalt and it doesn't. So if you say the lashon is that his miskasha, he's near a mall, the first lashon calls marish near a mall, like Shmuel says, then it has to be clearly near a mall. Near veina near is not near a mall. and therefore you would still have to tzorach lamula. But if you say kol zman shemiskasha ve'ena nira mol, and it's not near a mall, then near ve'ena nira is not near a mall. He's near ve'ena nira, then you would not have to cut anymore. Mal v'loy pora, ton rabbanan hamal oimer, the moyel, he makes the following bracha. Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvah v'tzivan alamil. So he makes the birchas and mitzvahs, asher kiddushanu alamil. And avia ben oimer, and then the father says the following bracha, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvah v'tzivan alachnisa b'risa shalavam vino. That you made to give us the mitzvah to bring this child to the bris of Avram Avinu. So there's a dion and Taisus about what the order is, but if we say that the order is the way we have the gears over here, that first the moil makes the bracha, then the avi makes the avia ben makes the bracha. So there is some question is whether the avia ben is he perhaps not making the bracha oiver l'siyosa. And brachas have to be made oiver l'siyosa before the actual mitzvah is performed. Now, if the moil is making the bracha and he mals, then the avia ben, the chari is not making it oiver l'siyosa. So there's different terutzim in how to answer that, but one teretz is that this bracha that the avia ben makes is not a birchas mitzvah, it's a birchas shvach, it's a birchas of praise, of praising the Rebbeinu Shalom. So and therefore we have two distinct brachas. We have one, that's why we have here two brachas. One is the bracha for the moil, the birchas of mitzvah, and then the father makes the bracha of praise. And the people who stand there say, and they say a bracha that just like the father was Masechet to bring this child into the bris, just like this child came into the bris, Ken Yikones, so he should also, the father should be able to bring him into the other mitzvahs that the father has to do for the child, Torah, Chuppah, Ma'asim Tovim, and the things that he's obligated to do for his child, to teach him Torah, to find him a wife, give him parnosa, which leads to Ma'asim Tovim, etc. The Ranas Badai says, that therefore you see from the people have to stand when there's a bris, that the people have to stand. They have to stand during the bris. And then there's the one person who's given the covenant to make the brachas. So he makes the following brachas, Asher Kiddush Yedid Mi Bet, that you were Makadesh, the Yedid, the beloved one, right from the beten, right from the womb. So Rashi says that the Yedid is referring to Yitzchak. He is considered the Yedid Mi Beten, Bin Chasher Ahavta. It says by the bris, it says by the Akedah. That's Bin Chasher Ahavta. So he's considered to be the Ohov. Taisa says that it's referring to Avram Avinu, and he says in the order of the bracha, it's referring to the three Aves. The first one is Asher Kiddush Yedid Mi Bet. Chayik B'Shera Sam. He put the chayik, the mark of the chayik on his share, on his flesh. That's what placed the ice of the bris. So Taisa says that refers to Yitzchak. It's had so chasam b'is bris chaydish, and he put the chasim of the seal in his children and his offspring. So Taisa says that's referring to Yaakov. Al kain mischar zois kel chayik al kainu tzaveh l'hatzal yedid sheira mishachas. The reward from this, the Rebbeinu Shalom will save his beloved ones from Gehenna, because of this mitzvah of this ois is the bris. L'man brisa asher sam b'b'sareinu, because of this bris that is embedded in our basa. Baruch ato Hashem kares habris. Hamal l'sagerim, someone who's mal l'ger. Oimer, he said the following bracha. Baruch ato Hashem l'keinu melech al Masechet Shabbat v'tzvaysav v'tzivon al amila. So that bracha is the same. And here the mavorach, it's not talking about the father, of course, it's talking about the mavorach, so the one who is designated, it's Chair from Bezdin. Mavorach Aimer, Asher, Kirishanu B'Saisav B'Tzvano Lomol Sager. You gave us the mitzvah to mal the ger. Ulhatav mehem dam bris, and to draw blood from them. Hatav mena dam bris. Shilmol dam bris le'niskaimu shamayim varas. Without the dam of the bris, then there would be no kiyum for the heavens and earth. Shenemar imlay brisi yomim v'layla chukla shemayim v'aretz le'samti. If not for my bris, the bris of day and night. What is the bris of day and night? That's the milah. The milah is a constant. And the mitzvah is performed at a certain point in time, but the milah is a constant. So an ois that's there, that bris is there constantly. If not for that bris, which is yom v'layla, chukla shemayim v'aretz le'samti, Hashem would not have established the chukais, the chukais of the world, of Shemayim V'aretz, the laws of nature. Baruch atah Hashem, Kairos Bris. So here we mention Lahat Min Adam Bris, because by Gerin, the Forshim say, because by Gerin it's common that they are already gemalt, so there's a chiyuv to be mativ dam bris. So we mentioned specifically that even if they had already the milah, but they have to have now hatavas dam bris. Amalas Avodim Aimer. He says by Avon Shekishon V'Tzvaysav V'Tzvanu Al Hamila. Here we have a Tzivui Al Hamila. V'Hamavorach Aimer Asher Kirishon V'Tzvaysav V'Tzvanu Lomol Avodim. V'Lahat Mehem Dam Bris Shel Mole Dam Bris Chukah Shemayim V'Aretz Leis Kaimu Shenemar Im Leibris Yom V'Layla Chukah Shemayim V'Aretz Leis Samti Baruch Atah Hashem Kairos Bris. Tosfos says, where's the tzivui from Avodim? Because it says, you lead by as miknas kesef, they have to be gemalt. So we make this bracha from for Avodim. Hadrolach Rabbi Lezer de Mila, Hadrolach Rabbi Lezer de Mila, Hadrolach Rabbi Lezer de Mila. New Perek Esrim, Thailand. Rabbi Lezer Aimer, Thailand is a mishmeres b'yantiv. Rabbi Lezer says we can suspend a strainer on yantiv. They used to take a filter, stretch it over a kli, and pour wine through the filter. The strained wine would float to the bottom, and the sediments would stay on top. So there's really two issues here that we have to discuss. One is the actual construction of the strainer, putting the filter, stretching it over the kli, which has a appearance of making an oil, making a binyan, of being boina. You're constructing something. So we'll see in the Gemara what the criteria for this is, and if we're dealing with Derais or Derabanan, the Gemara will discuss it in detail. And the second issue is the actual straining. Straining is there's a issue of boirer. You're separating the wine from the sediments. So Rabbi Lezer says, Thailand as a mishmeres b'yantav, you are allowed to suspend the strainer on yantav. But you're not allowed to do it on Shabbos. It's dafka on Yom Tov. But if it was already stretched and suspended, then you can pour the wine through it even on Shabbos. So Thailand on Yom Tov Oichel Nefesh is mutter. So therefore you're allowed to suspend the strainer on Yom Tov, even though it's involved in Isser, but there's Oichel Nefesh. And you're allowed to do malachas for Oichel Nefesh on Yom Tov, so therefore that's mutter. And you can even strain it on Shabbos, as Rashi explains, because this is not the normal way of straining. So presumably what we're dealing with over here is that the wine is normally not strained right before consumption. Normally it's processed, it's separated, it's strained, and it's poured through a sieve or a strainer from beforehand, and it's done in larger quantities, and it's stored away. Now here, you're doing small quantities right before he is going to consume it, so therefore it's not the normal way, and therefore it's mutter. So Rabbi Lezer says that you are allowed to even be toilet the mishmeres on Yontif because it's Roichel Nefesh. V'chomayim, they say, ain't toilet mishmeres be Yontif. You're not allowed to strain, you suspend the strainer on Yontif. Ve'ein noisim l'tluya b'Shabbos, and on Shabbos you're not even allowed to pour the wine through the strainer. Aval noisim l'tluya b'Yontif. But you are allowed to pour it through the strainer on Yontif. Since it's for the purpose of Roichel Nefesh, the Chum say you're not allowed to construct the strainer. You're not allowed to stretch it and suspend the strainer. You can't even pour it through on Shabbos since it has the appearance of boirer. You can't do it on Shabbos. You can't pour the wine through the strainer, but you are allowed to pour the wine through the strainer on Yom Tov because Eichel Nefesh is mutter. Now Tosfos points out that even though that's true, but we don't permit you to do malachas, even for Eichel Nefesh on Yontiv, if they're things that could have been done beforehand. And l'chayra, this could have been done beforehand. So he says, we must be talking that it would affect the taste of the wine if he had done it beforehand, and therefore it's considered something that could not have been done in the same way before Yontiv, so therefore it's permitted to do it on Yontiv, similar to cooking and baking, that even though theoretically it could be done beforehand, but it loses the freshness if it's done earlier, therefore it's permitted on Yontiv. Hofstedter, Rabbi Lezer says you can't even make a temporary addition to an existing structure to addition oil. You're telling me over here it's mutter to construct this to begin with, to suspend the strainer? Where do we see that Rabbi Lezer says you can't even be moisev on a oil arai? It's not. And if you have a window shutter, Rabbi Lezer, if it's tied and it's suspended. So, for instance, if you have a shutter for a window or for a skylight, it's tied to the binyan, and when it's not closing up the opening, it would be dangling and hanging down and would not reach the ground. So it's tied and it's dangling and it does not reach the ground. So Rabbi Lezer says, then you're allowed to close up the opening with it. But otherwise you can't. But the Rabban say no. In either event, you're allowed to do it. It's only a temporary addition, and to be moisev on oil, rye, that you're allowed to do it. But Rabbi Lezer apparently holds that no, unless it's kosher v'tolei, unless it's tied and dangling, even though it's only a temporary addition to the existing structure, and he still would hold that it's also to do it. You're not allowed to do it on you're not allowed to be moisev and on oil arai on Shabbos and Yontiv. So how over here in our Mishnah does he say you're allowed to even suspend it to begin with? So he explains the machlekes. He says that everyone agrees that you can't make a oil arai, even on Yontiv. You can't make a structure, even a temporary structure, to begin with. You can't initially construct even a temporary structure, even on Yom Tov, certainly not on Shabbos. So what's the machlekes? The question is whether you can make a temporary addition to an existing structure. Rabbi Lezer says, you can't even make a temporary addition you can't even make an addition to a temporary structure on Yom Tov. You can't even make that. You can't make even a temporary addition to an existing structure on Yom Tov, and certainly not on Shabbos. The Chum say you can make a temporary addition to an existing structure on Shabbos and certainly on Yom Tov. But Rabbi Lezer himself says you can't even make a temporary addition to an existing structure. So how over here can you say that he can make the strainer to begin with, that he can construct this strainer to begin with? More answers. Rabbi Lezer sovereign like Rabbi Yehuda. He holds like Rabbi Yehuda, who says, "Ein ben Yom Tov l'Shabbos alachal nefesh b'lvad." There's no difference between Shabbos and Yom Tov. The malachos that are also on Shabbos are also on Yom Tov, with the exception of Eichel Nefesh. What's needed for the preparation of food is mutter on Yom Tov and not on Shabbos. And Rabbi Yehuda mater af machshira Eichel Nefesh. Rabbi Yehuda's mater even machshira Eichel Nefesh, even utensils, things that are needed in the preparation of food, not only the actual cooking of the food, but if you have to make a knife. That's needed for the preparation of food, etc. These types of kalim, it's also mutter. So therefore, over here to set up the strainer, it's machshira eichel nefesh, and it's mutter, and that's why we mutter it on Yontiv. Where does he say that's mutter machshir and sheyav shalal says merav Yontiv? Well, even Rav Yehuda says that the machshira mutter only on machshirim that's ef shalal says merav Yontiv. You could not have done a berav Yontiv. It was for some reason it broke, it was not available, you didn't have the availability of it, there he's matir. But if you could have done this Erev Yontiv, he's not matir. Now over here, the construction of the strainer could have been done Erev Yontiv. Does he hold that you could do that for things that you could have done before Yontiv? So how can you say that Rabbi Lezer says you can suspend the strainer on Yontiv? This could have been done from beforehand. More answers that Rabbi Lezer Adifim Rabbi Yehuda. In general principle, he holds like Rabbi Yehuda, but even more. He holds on Machshirin are mutter on Yontiv, and even Machshirin that you could have done before Yontiv are also mutter. The Chacham argue and says you cannot suspend the strainer on Shabbos or Yom Tov. What is the din if the person did suspend the strainer? Is it a deraisa or is it a derabanan? Amar Rav Yosef Tola Chayv Chatas. He says it's deraisa. If a person did it, he's Chayv Chatas. Amar Leia Baya Elamiyata. How can you say that? This is only temporary. It's not a permanent structure. You're going to say, if you're going to say that if a person takes a peg and he suspends the jug from a peg, he has a peg and he suspends the jug from a peg, are you going to say also he's chayv chatas? Clearly that it's only temporary. Here also it's only temporary. How could you say that there's a chayv chatas over here? Elam Rabbayah, it's midrabanan. This is an issur d'Rabbanan. It's not a permanent structure. It's not really considered boina. It's not creating an oil. It's an issur d'Rabbanan. It's an uvda d'chol. He should not do things in the manner that he does in the weekday, even if they themselves are not a malacha. And even if they're not even so similar to malacha that we would asr it per se mid-Rabbanan, but the Rabbanan in a general category asr things which are uvda d'chol. It has a similarity. It has similarity to things which are done by making things, constructing things, which could lead to a person actually building things, making a real oil. So a person should not do things, engage in activities that he does in the normal course of the weekday, in the normal course of his activities in business, and in the things that he creates and he does. So therefore, this is also under that category, but it's also midrabanan, not midaraisa. Abaye collected and put in a group the similar halachas from a brisa, and he taught as follows: all these cases, so they have a similarity. These are all have some boine isurim, but they're only midrabanan. But they have some similarities to being boina, to building, to making tents. Anoid is a jug. It's a leather bag or a leather jug that they put in liquids to the travelers. And when it comes at nighttime, they want to keep the contents, the liquids, cool. And so it doesn't spoil. They stretch it over a pegs or over a tent, and they stretch it over posts, and to have a maximum surface area where it's exposed to the wind and to the air, which will keep the contents cool. So they stretch it over posts. That's like making a oil. It has a similarity of making an oil. V'amishmeres, and the strainer, which we just discussed, and kila, a canopy over the bed. They had posts at each end of the bed, and they spread over a covering, a canopy for the bed. Also has the appearance of an oil, of making an oil. And in this case over here, the Rashi mentions that it's only also if it has a tefach. If it doesn't have a tefach, even Rabbanan would not be also, but it has, where a tefach, it has a gag, it has a surface area on top of a tefach. V'kisei galin, and the chairs from the place from galin. So these it was sectional chairs, and had components, and they would put them together. They would assemble them and then take them apart. And this is also because we're afraid that he might, when he assembles them, Shema Yiska, he might fasten it in securely, and then it would have then it would be like boina, because he'd be constructing in a permanent way the chair. So it's also midrabanan, even if it's used as a sectional where he's not being fastening it in a firm way. So all of these things Loy yase, he should not do them on Shabbos or Yom Tov. Also, Pater will also, if he did, it's also midrabanan, not the rice, it's also midrabanan. Oil keva lo yase, but a permanent tent is also to make. A permanent tent is also to make v'im osa chayv chatas, and there that's a chayv chatas. That's called boina, and he's chayv chatas for if it's on a permanent basis. Aval mita, but a bed v'kise and chair and v'kise traskal v'askala, and folding chairs or a toilet seat mutar l'tois l'charchila. So if you have a bed that's folded up and then it's pulled down, so the like a Murphy bed, or or you have a folding chair. So when you open it up, there is like a tent. It has the seat or the bed. When you open it up, there has underneath it, there's space, and it's a covering on top. It has the appearance of making a tent. But, or the same thing with the toilet seat. But these are used constantly to be opened and closed and opened and closed. Over there, it's not even also midrabanan. It has no similarity to constructing anything because it's used regularly in an open and closed position. So these are mutar even l'charchila.